Hello, this is Paranormal Girl, the Sallie House. This is no ordinary house. This is the Sallie House, home to the good, the bad, and the evil. At first glance, this quaint, ordinary family-sized house doesn't look out of place from other quaint little houses which line this quiet residential street in the little town of Atchison in Kansas. Most will associate Kansas with the fantasy film The Wizard of Oz, but this is no fantasy at all. This is a real-life, true horror story where Dorothy is replaced with Sally, a little girl, and a wicked witch with an evil spirit. But before we get down to what lurks behind the walls of one of the most haunted houses ever in the USA, it's always good to know why things are haunted and who haunts there. As with every haunting, there's always a why and who behind the creepy ghost stories. The Sallie House was built back in 1867 for the Finney family, but at that time, this was just a normal family home with no name. Michael Finney lived here on 508 2nd Street in the little town of Atchison, Kansas, with his wife and 3 children, and remained there until his death in 1872. The house remained occupied by other members of the Finney family until the last descendant, Charles, died in 1947. At least 4 members of the Finney family are known to have died in the house itself. The last Finney to occupy the Sallie House was that Dr. Charles Finney, who died in 1947. After his death, the house was let out to anyone who wanted to live there, and this is where it became apparent that things weren't as they should be. So, the story goes, Dr. Charles Finney was at home one evening when there was a frantic banging on his front door. When he opened the door, he was faced with his neighbour, who was carrying her screaming young daughter Sally in her arms. There was no doubt that Sally needed medical attention right away, so he took Sally from his mother's arms and laid her upon a tabletop. The doctor thought that Sally's appendix had ruptured and she needed to be operated on straight away. Sally was in so much pain, he had to hold her down with one hand while he tried to sedate her with the other. It wasn't until he cut into her flesh with his razor-sharp scalpel did he realise that Sally was very much awake. Her screams travelled through the house and no doubt the whole street, and all her helpless mother could do was stand and watch as her daughter was operated on, awake. But the doctor did not stop. Sally died right there on his table from blood loss and shock. And this is where the ghostly activity begins. After the death of Dr. Charles Finney, being the last Finney member, the house was now vacant for tenants. Many families came and went over the years, and most only stayed a few months at a time due to the weird and creepy happenings. Nobody wanted to live here, it seemed, until Tony and Deborah Pickman moved into the house in 1993. It soon became apparent that the rumours surrounding this house being haunted may indeed be very true. The Pickmans hadn't long been living in the house before Sally decided to make her presence known. With the Pickmans celebrating the birth of their first baby, they had decorated the nursery and filled it with lots of teddy bears. Sally seemed to like playing with bears. She would take them off a shelf and arrange them in a neat circle in the middle of the bedroom floor. Now, Tony and Deborah would put them back on the shelf, and Sally again would arrange them in a circle in the middle of the floor, sometimes within minutes of the Pickmans tidying them away. Now, this went on for a very long time, and it was witnessed by friends and family as well. And I'll get into that a little bit more now. With all the paranormal activity that was going on in the new baby's bedroom, they decided to move him into their room and shut the door on the ghostly activity. But every night the light would go on all by itself, and in the morning they would find the light switched on yet again. As Sallie got used to sharing her home with the Pickmans, she would often show herself to them in ghostly form, but things soon started getting out of hand. Objects were often thrown across the house, and things started to get really creepy. So Tony and Deborah decided to invite their friend Renee Leaker to their home. Rennie was not only a friend, but she was also a psychic. The Pickmans went to collect Rennie, and upon arriving back to their home from outside, Rennie witnessed a tall shadow of a man sitting by the window, who got up, walked in the direction of the kitchen. But the most spooky thing of all was the house was actually empty, and there was no evidence of anyone ever actually in the home itself. And this is when things started to get really spooky. As Rennie walked around the house doing her investigation, she would feel many spiritual souls, but she also sensed a presence of evil. Deborah was instructed to start burning sage to cleanse every room, to get rid of the evil spirit that was there. When Deborah started cleansing the master bedroom, Tony, who was in the room, was attacked violently, and he was scratched and thrown through the air, hitting the bedroom wall at such a force he was actually flung out of his boots. Deborah ran to help him up, but he couldn't move. Something was forcefully holding him down. Rennie demanded the evil spirit to let go of Tony over and over, and eventually it did. But the evil remained in the house and would not go. After his terrifying event, Tony himself would often feel the presence of evil around him and was often attacked. Scratches and burns would appear on his body, simply out of nowhere. And this is always a presence of something very demonic indeed. Rumours of the Sallie House were spreading far and wide, and many ghost investigators, including the famous ghost adventurers, wanted a piece of the action for themselves, and they came and left not disappointed. Many witnessed objects flying through the air. Unexplained smells would appear out of nowhere and moving furniture, and even some claimed that they saw dark floating shadows, and others even became the next victim of an unseen violent ghost attack. In one scenario, when an investigation team actually witnessed the moment that Tony Pickman is apparently taken over by the evil spirit and makes him want to kill his wife Deborah, then that's when the scratches appear again on his body. This is only one of many documentations, and again, this is actual demonic activity. They normally come in threes, and it's to do with the Holy Trinity, and it's also to they normally knocks. You might hear knocks, like in this instance with the Sallie House. It started off with little simple things like a light switching on or bears moving, and then it starts to get more aggressive. You'll see things being thrown in the house, like vases, books, and eventually scratches. You might even hear growls, knocks, and so on. And this is where it gets very, very frightening. Over the years, many people have witnessed, including psychic and paranormal teams, full-bodied and half-bodied floating apparitions. But not just that of a little girl. They claim to be Sallie, but they also see men, women and children. There are numerous EVP recordings of different voices, again of men, women and children, and even the sounds of animals are also heard. So, who haunts the Sallie house? Some say Sallie vowed revenge after her brutal death. So, is this the little girl Sallie herself, who is the evil that caused harm and mayhem to all that enter? With all the evidence and footage captured, it's clear that there are other spirits here. A ghostly apparition of a woman has been seen wandering the hallway and on the stairs, as well as other children ghost spirits. A dark big shadow of a man has been seen lurking all over the house, and there are EVP recordings of many different voices. Needless to say, Tony and Deborah Pickman have moved since onto a less creepy dwelling and live in a peaceful harmony with no ghosts attacking them at all, or no evil spirit taking over their body. The Sallie house still sits in the little street of Atchison and is still claimed to be very much haunted indeed. But no one is brave enough to live there, but a few are brave enough to visit. So my question to you, would you be brave enough to enter the Sallie house? If so, make sure you take your camera and snap away. You may be lucky enough to catch a ghost of your own. So what's your thoughts on the Sallie house? Would you spend a night there and do a ghost investigation? Do you actually think the ghost of Sallie is that of a little girl? Or, with everything else that was going on in the house, do you think it was something more demonic? It certainly sounds it to me. Leave a comment in the section below. I'd be interested in your thoughts on this. Thank you for listening.